We're live.
You see him?
Yep, we're live. I can see myself here on YouTube, so
We don't
go ahead,
see.
Adolph. Mongo, go ahead.
Good morning. You know what? We even had some technical difficulties because Vanessa pushing me and all this other stuff is Adolph Mongo. Well, that's what happens when you do this shit live. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White. I'm Adolph Mongo, attorney Vanessa Moss. Sitting in today.
Well, I think we have lost Adolph. Can you guys hear me? Henry? All right, we're going to try to get him back here. All right, we're back. We lost you for a minute.
Allan Lengel, from co-founder from Deadline Detroit. Let's get right to the mix. Vanessa, your outrage of the week.
Oh, my outrage of the week is the lady who apparently had beef with her neighbor in Florida, and she was calling the kids the N-word or whatever. And it's a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. I think the 12-year-old took the 9-year-old to the door to talk to the lady. She wasn't having it. Then the mother, who's in her late 30s, decides that she's going to go to the house. I guess take, as mothers do, mother bears, take up for their kids. And the homeowner or the lady who lived in the house, now they already have beef. And I'm not trying to be funny or anything. I can't imagine if somebody was talking to my kids any old kind of way, saying the N-word, stay off my property, don't be playing in the front of my house. I know that lady didn't go up to their house and say, ma'am, can I talk to you a minute? She was pissed, I'm sure. But this lady takes out a gun and she kills the mother of the two children. So you have these two kids that will be traumatized for the rest of their lives. And I understand the 12-year-old was trying to give his mom CPR and told his grandmother, I was trying to save her. Can you imagine that kind of trauma that those kids will experience and feel guilty, about telling their mother about what was going on? And then mom goes to the house and sees what happened. What happens with the stand your ground? She's been charged, but we know that the stand your ground is a very heavy defense. And again, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I can't imagine the exchange between the two women was a very nice exchange.
Well, they've been beefing a long time.
Yeah.
And they say the woman hate kids. So here she is in jail. Jim, your outrage of the week.
My outrage is with the federal government. I'm confused. So Trump has class.
All right, we're having a little bit of difficulty here. I'm going to continue on until we get him back here in the studio here. My gripe, my outrage is really Donald Trump. Here is a guy. I mean, if you start reading through, I think it's a 49-page indictment. It clearly shows he's sharing highly classified information. He's talking to a writer who's recording. He's got staff members in there. They're talking about, a plan to attack Iran. He's sharing the information. No one in the room, ex-president continues to have security clearance. No one in the room has security clearance except for Trump. He's sharing the information, which is, they asked repeatedly for him to return the documents. He lied. He told his attorneys to lie. He lied to his attorneys. And here is his response after the indictment that came on.
I get what Jim was trying to finish his point.
All right. Okay. Hey, Vanessa, you guys got cut off. So Jim, maybe you can start over because we lost you right after Jim said, I've got a gripe with the federal government. So.
Okay. My outrage is with the federal government that's going to spend millions of dollars. There's no question that Donald Trump.
All right. We apparently have lost them again. So anyways, I'm going to play my, Jim is going to question uh, the indictment. I think anyone else, I mean, the indictment is so brazen. It points out, it quotes Donald Trump from the 2016 campaign, where he's obviously attacking Hillary Clinton for using a private, um, a private email. And he's saying, we need to, prosecute people who violate security issues like this. Well, here he is. They wanted the documents back. He kept hiding documents, kept obscuring them. So here's his response, which I find really just disgraceful.
Very sadly, we're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far, and did much better the second time in the election than the first. And they go after him on a boxes hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. This has been going on for 7 years. They can't stop because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person.
Now, my other thing is, to top off, the Republicans are all coming to his defense, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is part of a committee that's looking into Joe Biden. So they were asked to look at FBI top secret documents, the FBI. The FBI said, come on in. You're going to go in this room called the SCIF, which is a highly secure place. We're bringing you in because this is highly confidential material. She comes out and starts screaming. And here's what her response is.
And it is no coincidence that yesterday, when we walk out of a SCIF in the Capitol and bring out the most damning, credible evidence against Joe Biden, impeachable offenses, and I'll argue this, he should have been hauled out of the White House yesterday in handcuffs. But instead, what was the news cycle last night? That they have indicted President Trump for mishandling classified documents? You should be outraged. This is good, because I'm with you. But let me tell you.
All right. So anyways, so we've got that going there. But anyways, we're having technical difficulties. I'm actually in Washington, D.C., and the other crew there is at McShane's, and there's some internet issues. So I'm going to continue on. We're going to bring in Frankie Darcell. Welcome, Frankie.
Hi there.
Hi.
Happy
I'm sorry
Saturday.
we're having a little difficult. I'm in DC actually, so I'm getting internet. Those guys are over at the McShane's at Michigan and Trumbull, and they're having internet issues. So I'll try it until we bring them back into the studio.
Okay.
I'm gonna thanks for taking the time out. You are one of the legendary radio personalities in Detroit. Tell us how you got started and
Wow.
where your career started. I know in where you ended up, and I know you've talked to a lot of very famous people, and so we'll get into all that. Whoops.
Right. So it's been a couple of decades,
Right.
for quite some time. I attended Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh wow. Okay.
I was an athlete in both high school and college.
What kind of athlete? What were you doing?
Pardon?
What were you doing? What kind of sports?
In high school, I played soccer, ran track,
Oh wow.
and was a basketball player.
Wow.
And was
Look
a
at you.
walk-on in basketball at Morgan State University. And just as a footnote, last year, inducted into the university's Athletic Hall of Fame. So I'm
Wow.
extremely
Congratulations.
excited about that.
Wow.
Thank
So
you.
cool. Very cool.
Thank you. So because of my athletic background, I wanted to do physical therapy and wanted to work with sports teams. What I didn't know until my sophomore year in college is that I did not have an affinity for blood, guts, and things like that. I'm taking an anatomy and physiology class, and
Right.
I just couldn't take it. But I had a speech communications class right after that anatomy class that I had, and
Okay.
walked by the university's radio station, and a gentleman by the name of Kwaisi Mfume, who is now a second serving congressional member representing Baltimore, Maryland, was on the air. And this was back in 1977. And I said, wow, that looks cool. Maybe I could do that. I have a gift for, gift for gab.
Right.
And
Sure.
I switched my major in my junior year, and I have never looked back. So my degree is in communications with a minor in marketing. I've been doing radio for about 34 years at this point. Love it. Left the university, started working in Norfolk, Virginia. Had my first job when AM stations were still a thing.
Right. And what were you doing? What were you doing? What kind of format?
Anything I could. I was working overnights, working weekends, like most young people who are starting out in their careers. Anywhere that I could find an air shift. I worked at the station, the very first station that I was on. I didn't have the opportunity. They didn't hire me full time. So anybody, I prayed for people to take a day off just so that I could get an opportunity to get into the studio. And then received my first full-time job in Raleigh-Durham. Worked in Raleigh-Durham for about 2 or 3 years.
And what station was that?
K97.5 in Raleigh-Durham.
It sounds like a rock station. What was the format?
Yeah, and this was at the time when, everybody played everything, right? We were just outside of vinyl, to tell you how long ago that was. Right?
Sure.
And so I was hired to do these.
Whoops. I think we lost her for a moment there. Hopefully we will get her back. There we go. I'm sorry. Whoops.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Yep.
Contacted by program director in Charlotte, North Carolina, which was the market to be in as it was growing. They just gotten the professional basketball team, was getting the football team. So I moved to Charlotte, worked in Charlotte for 2 or 3 years. And then I was contacted by a man named Steve Hegwood, who said, how would you like to come to Detroit? I actually met him at the Soul Train Music Awards out in LA. We had a wonderful conversation. And out of the blue, he called me and said, how would you like to come to Detroit? And I was like, where is it?
Yeah, where are you originally from?
Originally from Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised in Brooklyn. My father was a career Marine. My mother was a social worker. My mother's from a small town in North Carolina. Then her family moved to Norfolk, met my dad, who was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. And when he retired after 35 years in the Marine Corps, he went to work for a company called Bethlehem Steel, which back in the 50s and 60s was major.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, they moved to New York. And so I have 5 siblings. My 2 sisters and brothers and I were raised in Brooklyn. And
where are you on the pecking order? Where are you on the pecking order of the children?
I am 4 of 6.
Okay.
Between all the boys.
Okay.
So I'm a middle kid.
Okay.
And middle kids, and there's a whole psychology.
I'm a middle kid.
So. Middle kids are great people.
Yeah. I agree. I think they have the best sense of humors.
Absolutely. You have to. Yeah. So you've got the older ones who want to tell the younger ones what to do, and the younger ones who, get all of the favor, and the middle kids are kind of out on their own. But most middle children are very successful and independent.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were made an offer to Detroit, and what did you think when you heard Detroit? You were like, I
didn't know much about
and
Detroit.
What year was this?
That was in 1992. That was late 1992. And he, said, would you be interested? Detroit at the time was the 6th largest city in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
It was the opportunity for me to work in a major market.
Right.
I knew about Motown. I knew
Uh-huh.
about the Lions.
Uh-huh.
That was it. That
Uh-huh.
was it. You know, the interesting thing is I knew about Barbara Rose Collins. I had actually written a paper
Uh-huh.
on her in college.
Really? About
And
what
there's a
was the
story
paper
behind
on?
that.
What was the story behind that?
You know, so we were looking at, because Baltimore, you know, with this proximity to Washington, D.C., we
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of traveling back and forth. It's, you know, at the time between Howard University and some of the others. And we were very politically active at that time. And so was I. So we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, you know, actually write papers. It was one of the classes that I had taken
Uh-huh.
to write a story, you know,
Uh-huh.
on individuals that are impacting their communities. And
Right.
for whatever the reason, I have no idea why.
Uh-huh.
And her name just always stood out to me. Barbara Rose Collins seemed so, you know, just so powerful. So I actually wrote a paper on her in college. And when I
Wow.
got an opportunity to meet her in Detroit, I shared that story with her.
Was that exciting for you to actually meet the woman you had written about, or?
Absolutely, it was. And when I met her, I was so nervous. I had been on the air maybe 3 or 4 years. She was still serving in Congress when I met her, when I moved to Detroit. And I said, you know, I wrote a paper, you know, about you. And she was like, are you kidding? I said, no, you know, just the impact that people have, especially on young people, that they don't even realize that they have. But I flew to Detroit in June. So I'm coming from Charlotte. And I think this was early, it was in May. It was middle of May. And so I had on shorts and a blazer and I get off the plane and it's freezing. and I thought, this is May. What is this? You know,
Right.
I actually went to Northland Mall. The person who picked me up, I said, I need to buy a jacket. And they actually took me to Northland Mall so that I could buy a jacket because I was so cold in May.
That's so funny.
Coming from North Carolina. But it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
And what was your impression about Detroit when you first looked around and said, this is good, this is bad, or what did I do? Or...
You know, let me be candid. You know, so the program director and general manager, when we landed and they gave me a once over of Detroit verbally, we actually had lunch in Canada.
Oh yeah.
They took me over to Ontario to have lunch, and I thought, this is weird, but they wanted to show me the proximity of Canada to Detroit. And, you know, Detroit was still getting beat up quite a bit, you know, at that time. So they wanted to show me all the great things about the city of Detroit. But I had a lot of confidence in the program director and general manager, Steve Hegwood, and Verna Green. At the time, he was one of the most incredible programmers I've ever worked for.
And that was at what station?
Smart.
What station was that?
WJLB. I was hired.
WJLB.
Yeah, I was hired to work.
Awesome station.
Yes, Heritage Station in the city. Right. And I can tell you my second day. So I decided to take the job. I was married at the time. We had been married maybe a year. We said we'd be in Detroit for 3 to 4 years. We do everything we needed to do, and then we go, you know, to the next phase. And that 3 years turned into 24.
Wow.
The 3 years turned into 24. But it was one of the best decisions that I had ever made, making a decision to move to Detroit. You know, my daughter, who's now 26, was born and raised in Detroit. She considers it home. She's actually started a scholarship for students in Detroit. So she is Detroit, you know, born and bred.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
So you made a name for yourself. You got to know a lot of people. Tell us some of the more famous people that you spoke to and your impressions of them.
Now, are we speaking of Detroit nationally or a combination of them
Yeah,
all?
combination.
Wow, wow,
Or should we
let's
start
see,
with Detroit? Should we start with Detroit first, and then we'll go? Who
yeah,
Detroit
yeah, 'cause,
impressed?
it's so interesting because Detroit is such a jewel, a crown jewel. And when I landed and got my foot, really planted, I thought, wow, Coleman Alexander Young, Congressman John Conyers,
Yeah.
and I just thought of the list and the litany of
There you go.
individuals.
Just set the-
There we are.
Well,
No,
He's
that
don't use
doesn't
it.
go in there.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I thought that's what you said.
Don't do that.
Okay.
Okay, now,
individuals.
hold on, we need the microphone.
So I've interviewed
Going
uh,
in
three
here.
of the
Put
last
mics
4
from that
presidents.
computer over there.
Um,
Where's this
most
at?
people who are
Okay.
significant in the entertainment business, who were just
Alright. So
amazing
you guys,
to me. I've had the opportunity to interview. So I'm excited about that and have befriended
We're back.
several
And you?
individuals that I've become very close with.
Yeah,
of
we
course,
can.
All the mics
when we talk about the
All the
Queen
mics
of
are good?
Soul, there's some incredibly
Do we need to
notable
take the
people
headphones out?
who are icons.
Do we need our headphones on?
Probably don't. He said the mics are working.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
No.
I'm sorry, Frankie. Go ahead. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We were having a little bit of a problem there. So I'm sorry. We conked out for a minute there. Could you tell me again? Can we start over in terms of the local people that you have spoken to?
Sure. So moving to Detroit,
Yeah.
I realized just the history of the city of Detroit that I did not know, and
Okay.
to have had the opportunity
Turn on the
to
Wi-Fi again.
meet people like the former mayor Coleman Alexander Young and the historic contributions of people like the Honorable John Conyers and the like, just some icons, and to move to Detroit and to build a relationship with people like Aretha Franklin and the like, just was a plethora of great, incredible history, politically, musically, and the like. So I've interviewed 3 of the last 4 presidents. So I like to say that
Who impressed you? Who impressed you of all the presidents that you spoke to?
Let's see who have clearly Bill Clinton, the former President Bill Clinton, former President Barack Obama were the most impressive. I had the opportunity as well, which I'm excited about, to interview President Joe Biden, who's in Delaware, which is right up the road. So I had an opportunity
back in your old
to
neighborhood.
meet him. Yeah, on a number of occasions,
Sure.
and of course now he's president. And and actually met Kamala Harris at the Aretha when she was a senator, then a candidate for president, and then of course vice president. So I had incredible access to the vice president when she was running as the vice presidential candidate, and now vice president of the United States. So I would say those are the most compelling.
I see. And again, when you talk about Coleman Young, and I had an opportunity at the Detroit News to talk to Coleman Young for, I interviewed him for about 4 hours one afternoon, a Friday afternoon in his office. And what was your impression interviewing Coleman? And we've got Adolph and his crew back now.
The first year and a half that I was in Detroit, when I had the opportunity to meet him, and though I watched from afar, I will tell you, I did not realize, because when I came to Detroit, politics and all of that was not my forte. It was just music.
Right, sure.
So when I met him, we were actually leaving the African American Museum, and he just said to me, we talked outside. It was just for a few minutes, and I said, Mr. Mayor, it is an honor to meet you. And I introduced myself. He said, I know who you are. You're doing some good stuff.
Oh, nice. And what was your reaction
I
when
know who you are, and you're doing some good stuff. I will tell you so that you know It was when Barbara Rose Collins had a fundraiser at, I believe it was a strip club on McNichols, I think it was, like at Watts Mozambique or something like that. And I talked about it as a talk of the town topic. And my phone lines blew up. And she got angry at me. But I invited her into the studio and she spent the afternoon. And we talked about why she did it there and the like. And then all of a sudden, politicians started calling me. I'd like to come on your show. I'd like to come on your show. Then I started talking to town, which I did as a public affairs show on Sunday. And Kwame Kilpatrick at the time was the state representative. He started coming to do my show. God rest her soul, Brenda Scott started doing my show weekly. And then all of a sudden I got thrust into politics and the rest is history. So I say that to say.
Did you enjoy it?
I did, and I do. And if I were more politically astute prior to that, I would have taken more time to spend with the former mayor, Coleman Young. So when I met him, he was just the mayor. But when I really got into politics, maybe 5 or 7 years later, I would have spent a lot more time with him. Just to have archived just some incredible conversations. That's what I would have liked to have done.
Right. Adolph, you guys have any, can you hear me?
Well, hello, Frankie Darcell.
Hi there, Adolph Mongo. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm here with Jim and Vanessa. You know, with this modern technology, if you don't get an internet connection, you see what happens.
Well, you know, when you get over 45, you just have to start a little earlier.
Exactly.
There's no question. Frankie said she didn't know about politics. Frankie turned into the most political, you know, they used to call them disc jockeys, but she was a political commentator. She was great. She knew all the issues, knew all the people.
The word was.
No, I'm talking about here in Detroit. You know, you still great. And you still doing it. We just miss you. That's all. You know, we don't have those many voices like we used to have here in the city. And yeah, we miss you. Wish you was back here, but you're doing bigger and better things. Glad that you can come on. Vanessa, you have a question for Frankie?
You know what? We had such a cluster. I just can't. I can't. But good morning. Glad to have you on the show.
Good morning. Hi, Vanessa.
How you doing? How do you like? You're in Delaware, or you're in Philadelphia? You're in Philadelphia. How do you like Philadelphia?
You know, two things. I like Philadelphia. Philadelphia and Detroit have a lot in common.
Right.
A lot in common. Believe it or not, I've been in Philadelphia now 10 years.
Wow.
So until last year in April, I was doing Detroit and Philadelphia. And I do 10 other cities around the country. I was saying, Vanessa, my daughter was born in Detroit, and I was there living physically in Detroit for 24 years. So I'm still in Detroit at least twice a month. I do an incredible podcast, and I work with the Michigan Chronicle on a number of initiatives. And I can tell you, I'm in Detroit at least twice a month. And every time I keep saying, okay, this is going to be my last event for a while, I'm brought back in. So I still do a number of speaking engagements in Detroit and a couple of, you know, business opportunities that have really opened up for me since leaving Detroit. But to Philadelphia, 1.5 million people, it is one of the things that was really interesting when I moved here is that it's very multicultural. The educational system mirrors that of Detroit. The political system is a little bit different, a lot different. The quality of life, particularly for those people of color, mirrored the city of Detroit a lot. I like being on the East Coast. I was saying earlier, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, so I get the opportunity to hop a train and get to New York as often as I can. My family is in Virginia Beach, so I get an opportunity to jump in a car and wake up. And actually, I'm getting on the road as soon as I'm done here. But I like being on the East Coast. So I've got DC, which is just about, 2.5 hours from me. So I'm in DC covering some things. I was just at the White House in April, covering a couple of events and doing some events there. So, you know, I like Philly. I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
So let me
I'm a
ask
big
you.
fan.
I like it a lot.
Let me ask you this. You said that there's some differences, in particularly the politics. Can you give us the difference, a few of the differences?
Well, you know, I'll say this. Detroit, to its credit, I think the difference is the passion. I think that Detroit is a little more organized and open relative to its politics. And what do I mean by that? You're real clear about who your leaders are. Here in the city of Philadelphia, for example, you've got your mayor, you've got your city council, then you have your ward leaders and things like that. And now, like the city of Philadelphia, they have, you know, a number of members at large, and they have the districts, and they may. There is a pecking order in Philadelphia of who gets what when. That is clear. And on the Democratic side, and it's a 7-1 vote in the city of Philadelphia in terms of Democrat to Republican. Just finished May 16th, the primary election. The city right now is poised to elect its first woman who will be mayor, and that woman is an African American woman who will be the 100th mayor of the city of Philadelphia.
What's her name?
Representative, served as a city council member, and she will be the next mayor of the city of Philadelphia.
Awesome.
She was slated to do so, and I think she's going to be incredibly successful.
What is her name?
Sherelle Parker.
Okay, Jim, you have a question?
I'd like to ask you about your interview with Bill Cosby. If you could just tell our listeners and our staff a little bit about your interview with Bill Cosby last year.
Oh my gosh. So I tell people all the time, it took me 3.5 years for an 8-minute conversation, right? Of course, Bill Cosby, born and raised here in the city of Philadelphia. Of course, you know, the individual that sued him at the time was from Philadelphia. So it happened right here. I actually live in Montgomery County, which is where he was prosecuted and tried. So, you know, I had the opportunity to go up and cover it, met his PR person, Wyatt. And when I had the opportunity to meet Wyatt, we had a number of different conversations. And I think one of the things I pride myself on is giving people the opportunity to tell this story. You know, I'm not a journalist. I mean, I played Luther Vandross and Rick James records and interview presidents, right? But my degrees are in journalism and communications and the like. But as a talent, I always wanted to give whoever the individual is an opportunity to tell this story, but at the same time, answer the tough questions. So after the first trial, and it was a hung jury, Wyatt and I had an opportunity to speak. I brought him in, asked him all the tough questions. Never did he walk in and say, don't ask this, don't ask that. Then they had the second trial. He was found guilty. I had Wyatt in, we spoke. Then as a result of that, he just respected the work I did and how I did it. I've never tried to blindside anybody. I've always tried to give people their opportunity to tell this story. So during that time, while Mr. Cosby was incarcerated, I had the opportunity to speak to him on 2 different occasions while he was incarcerated. And I will say to you, he said to me, when this is done and this is over, you will be the first phone call that I make. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. So when the Commonwealth Supreme Court, the Commonwealth Supreme Court heard the case, and I watched that entire argument between the Montgomery prosecutor at the state and his attorneys, with, you know, I was floored at just the way that because it came down, a lot of it came down to the non-disclosure agreement in the civil trial. The questions that they asked, my gut feeling was that they were going to vacate his sentence. It was maybe 90 days or so later when they did. I got a phone call from Wyatt at about 9:30 in the morning. He said, Frankie, I want you to be prepared. I want to share something with you. I can't share with you right now. And I kind of knew what that was. Later in the afternoon, maybe 9, 10, 11 o'clock, I mean, every major network, ABC, NBC, CBS, oh, he probably won't get out until Monday. So I'm on the phone with my sources, and they're like, I'm picking him up now. We're getting in the car, and they're saying, oh, he's going to be there until Monday. He's going to be there till Tuesday. And this was a Friday afternoon. And he got home. And I said, Wyatt, I need you to call my hotline number. Do you have it? He said, yes. And I'm on the air. It's 3:15, and my cell phone rings, and I answer my cell phone, and I hear Frankie Darcell. I'm like, this is Mr. Cosby. Bill Cosby. I was like, oh, Mr. Cosby, how you doing? You've got time to talk? I said, are we on the record? He said, yeah, we're on the record. I said, do you want to go on the air? He said, yeah, I want to go on the air. And I'm with my cell phone. Now, I'm over 45 and not digital at all. I tell my producer, we're going live, and we're going live right now. I literally put my cell phone on speaker, called my program director and said, I've got Bill Cosby on the phone. And bam, that's literally how it happened. And we went live at that moment. And I had him on my cell phone and put the cell phone up to the microphone and gave him an opportunity to speak. Now, I will say to you that, and there are people, well, why didn't you ask this? That's not what that phone call was about.
Right.
That's not what that phone call was about. There was a promise that I would have a one-on-one with him after that. But this man, who's an international superstar, and then, of course, with all of the coverage, to get that very first phone call before he took a shower, leaving the state penitentiary, was big. So I had my cell phone and went live.
Let me ask you, how, when you talked to him in all these different conversations, was he honest with you? Do you feel like he was being honest?
Absolutely. And I don't know. Well, I can't say to you absolutely, because I wasn't there. I like to tell people I wasn't in the room. Right. But what I will say to you is that, and I've spoken with him on several different occasions, even as recent as 2 weeks ago. What I will say to you is that when I asked the questions, and I asked what I thought was a fair, honest questions, and not once did he say at the beginning of the interview, don't ask me this, don't ask me that, don't ask me this, don't ask me that. Mm-hmm. And I believe my job as an interviewer is to ask the question, and if in your answer you're not telling the truth, I'm going to challenge you on that truth. So during the interview, I did, ask him what I thought was some tough questions. And let me just say, as a footnote, I had the opportunity to speak with Camille Cosby as well for 30 minutes.
Oh, really?
And asked her some very tough questions that women, wanted to know.
Like what?
So
like what kind of questions?
He was truthful. We didn't talk about the legalese. We talked about whether or not.
All right.
We lose her. That
no, she's back.
You back? Frankie, I know you on the road and stuff. So
yeah, but I've got time. Time. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead about Camille Cosby.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to interview Camille Cosby, who, quite frankly, in my opinion, is brilliant. I think we went back to even the days of the Cosby Show and what her contribution was with that. And what I'm saying to you are some things that she said on the record, because we had conversations off the record as well. And just navigating through the contributions they made to HBCUs and how, he was stripped of, a number of those honorary degrees from a number of institutions. And I believe, and she was more candid than he was in the interview. And in my opinion, I think that she's been the person navigating that career from the beginning.
Right, and I thought she got a raw deal by one of the schools that took all her money. They had both of their names, and they took her name off. I said, I had no problem taking his name off, but that was part of her bucks too.
But you know what? I didn't have a problem with I had a problem with him taking his name off as well. It doesn't, because of what he was accused of, does not, to me, it should not result in, excuse me, they're taking away the things that
You can't cancel it.
Yeah, we live in a cancel culture, and I think it's just wrong. Excuse me.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Frankie, was that one of your top interviews?
I because of the impact that it had on the world, and the interest. I would say the impact and the interest, the impact that it had here regionally, and how it impacted the industry. I think, and just the interest that people around the world had in the story, and I realized how massive of a talent Bill Cosby was when I landed that interview.
Well, you had got a reputation around the country as it being fair, tough, and knowing the issues. And my time with coming on your show on Sundays, we had some fun, but we had some serious issues that we dealt with. And when Frankie spoke, and people listened, especially when you disagreed with him.
Yeah. And I will tell you, all of us have been doing this for quite some time. And as I'm still covering stories in Detroit, I get messages from both. I've interviewed Senator Stabenow, because now with the advent of the internet, and their staff, their communications people, I do a podcast called Frankie's Got a Big Mouth. Go figure. But just the advent of the internet, I still get calls from Senator Peters' office, Senator Stabenow's office, the governor's office, to do some interviews, because the podcast is doing so well, and the influence is still there. And every time I even interview them, since I've left Detroit on the air a year ago, they want to stay connected.
I know you was good. I know you was good friends with Jamie Foxx. How's he doing? Have you heard?
I can't. Now, let me clarify. Jamie Foxx and I professionally, have been in the same circles. I've interviewed him on a couple of occasions.
Right.
I do not know. I've not spoken to his family. I think in critical times like these, Adolph, I will say to you, like all of us, we each have resources and people that we talk to. One of the things I can say, Vanessa, about being in Philadelphia, I've not had those relationships. There's some folks in Detroit that I can talk to, and they will tell me something, and I can run with it.
Right.
As if it's gospel. Mm-hmm. And there's some relationships I have with people nationally that I'm just not sure the information that they've given me is the information that I know I could go on the air with and not be, liable. So, but right. I will tell you, his family, has released some statements. There've been a lot of people saying a lot of things until it comes from the family, and they've kept it very close to the vest. I've had one conversation. I don't feel very comfortable with the source. So I have just kept that information to myself.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to wrap it up with the legendary Frankie Darcell. Thank you, Frankie. We really
I'm Wayne County Treasurer
this.
Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
All right.
Okay. So, when next time you coming into the city, Frankie?
I will be in Detroit the end of July.
Okay.
And fingers crossed, I will be in Detroit in late March of 2024. Adolph, I know, I am a lover of the arts. So I'm doing quite a bit in the arts community here in Philadelphia. And I've been writing, and, I love to write, and I've done 2 books. So in 2018, I wrote my own stage play. And we actually came to Detroit, brought the stage play to Detroit in September, sold out audience, standing ovation. So we'll be coming back to Detroit. in a much bigger venue somewhere off Woodward Avenue. I'm not going to say until, someone signs the check. But so we're looking at launching the show November 18th and 19th here in Philadelphia, and we're going on the road in 2024. It's my hope that it becomes a national touring stage play. It's wonderful. I wrote it, but it's a wonderfully written stage play, but it's really a compelling conversation for women, and it's done extremely well. So I will be back in Detroit in August, and then I will be back in Detroit in March of 2024. At this
Frankie,
point.
what's the play? Can you tell us the name of the play and what it's about?
Sure. The play is called Conversations for Sisters Only. It is a multicultural cast talking about issues concerning women and the issues of the day, what your wives and girlfriends and sisters talk about on a regular basis. It is live on stage, and it's been received extremely well. So I'm excited about that.
Quickly, Frankie, I'm sorry. One of our listeners want to know what's happening with Abu Jamal. You had any information on his quest to be free?
No, well, that's an ongoing story as well. That's happening in Jersey, which is in the region. And it pops up every blue moon. I'm not, I don't cover that story a lot, but it pops up. I would say to you, based on the information that I've read, what I've seen, that it does not seem likely that that's going to happen.
And no question.
Yeah, I don't believe, based on what I've read, that it is likely to happen that he'll be released. And I'll just say, one of the wonderful things about being in this region is that the city of Philadelphia actually runs this region. I mean, we've got Jersey, just 20 minutes away across the Ben Franklin Bridge, and we've got Delaware just about 25 minutes south, and it's just a really cool region to be in. It is massive, very, very, very diverse, culturally, religiously, and the like. And, I can tell you that when I first moved here, it was 2013, and was going back and forth to Detroit, because I was in Detroit like every other weekend at that time up until a year ago. But I just so love Detroit, and with all of his assets. I just want to share this before we get ready to go, because this conversation came up recently with some folk that I know from Detroit and some folks I know here from Philadelphia. And I will say to you, and they asked that question, Vanessa, what is the difference? And how do you feel about Philadelphia coming here from Detroit? I said, Detroit gets beat up about a lot of things. I said, but I can tell you that really there is with all the differences in Detroit, there are some commonalities of people being able to come together and have some conversations, even when they disagree. But one of the things I think has been key, and especially in this climate that we're in with the gun violence around the country, the gun violence in the city of Philadelphia is unreal. The gun violence across the country right now is unreal, and the way it's covered. But I can say this, though. The difference for sure is when you watch a network, or you read the newspapers, or you listen on the radio here in Philadelphia, you may hear 5 or 6 stories of murder, death, kill. Someone was killed at 4th and Elm. This person was robbed. But you have those same individuals within that same conversation, or that same 30-minute show, or that same 40-minute show, talk about how great the city is. I think Detroit has to really sing its own praises, and from those who are talking about it on a regular basis. And that clearly is one of the differences in outside of the similarities of Detroit versus Philadelphia. And if I had a choice, I don't want to say what I was thinking, because I do live in Detroit, in Philly, and make my money here. But I would live in Detroit any day. I would live in Detroit any day if I had a choice.
Go ahead. One more question.
I have one more. Well, I actually had 2, but I'll ask the one. If given the opportunity to come back to Detroit, is that something that you would do?
It costs a lot of money, Vanessa.
Yeah, okay. Hey, Frankie,
Okay, so
we
if they
got.
give you the right number, you will come back. Huh?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I got to tell you, and Vanessa, my daughter who loves Detroit, born and raised in Detroit, when my mother beat cancer and started a scholarship in my mother's name. And to date, and she started it as a junior at Spelman College. And to date, she's given 6 scholarships to young people in the city of Detroit. And I asked her last year, do you want to expand it or make it a little more regional? She said, no, Detroit is my home. And I want to forever give back to the city of Detroit. To your question specifically, would I? Yes. I like the weather on the East Coast, Vanessa. I got to tell you, when I watched, when I covered Detroit, and I'm talking about Michigan, I love the winter, spring, summer, and fall. But absolutely, I would invest in, I've thought about it, Vanessa, invest in getting maybe a little condo downtown or something like that, because I still do a lot of business in the city of Detroit. Some of my best
Come
friends.
back. Jim, you got
Adolph
anything to
Mongo
say
is in
before
the city.
she?
So yeah, I would absolutely keep roots in the city of Detroit.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Jim. And no question. And Frankie, you go back. Enjoy your weekend. We're gonna have you back again.
Thanks so much.
Frankie's real disciplined. She was raised by a Marine. And I always told her mother must have been in the Marine too, because she was she packed a punch.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you, Frankie Darcell, the legendary Frankie Darcell. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if
Thanks
I
so
could
much.
say, Adolph, as a footnote, my mother wasn't a Marine, but she was a social worker, so that made her close. She was an honorary Marine. That's number one. Number two, I just wanted to say as well, I'd love to have you guys on my podcast as well.
Oh,
First of all, I've watched you guys are doing an amazing job. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing and keeping people informed. And I wish you guys nothing but the very best. And absolutely love Detroit. I miss it a lot. And somebody's just got to fight the good fight for the everyday people in the city of Detroit. And if anything breaks my heart, to know that level of activism and covering very important stories for everyday people, to give both sides of the issue, I think is a disservice to the citizens. That probably is the part that breaks my heart. And I get calls all the time from people saying, well, can you, you guys know the story.
Yeah, no question about it.
Keep fighting the good fight and letting folks know and covering the issues that are still important to working class people in the city.
Thank you, Frankie Darcell.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we had some technical issues, and I want to give a shout out to Allan Lengel, who held it. Listen, he's a veteran journalist and stuff. He was in a panic like me. Are we gonna have a show? Yeah, we got it.
Right.
And we're gonna keep doing it. Jim, when we lost our power, you was doing your outrage of the week. Let's go back to the outrage of the week. Go ahead.
My outrage is with the U.S. government, who's spending millions of dollars to prosecute people. I don't question that Donald Trump did what they're accusing him of doing. He's an idiot, right? He's talking to everybody about his clearance. You have a clearance, you're not supposed to talk to anybody. I get that. I had held a clearance at one time. You can't behave that way. But the millions of dollars, we need the documents back. The United States needs to get the documents from Mike Pence and from Joe Biden and from Donald Trump and from Jimmy Carter. Whoever has those documents, they need to go secure those documents. That's the bigger issue here, in my opinion, than spending millions of dollars.
Go ahead. I want to respond to that. I first of all, Jim, people who talk about this need to read the 49-page indictment there. And really, it's about Donald Trump thinks he can do anything. Look, yes, I agree. They need to get the documents back. They asked him for it back. He hid them. He moved them around.
Lock him up.
He met with a writer who was recording. He met with two staff members of his. They were going over top secret documents about attacking Iran. There has to be a limit. There has to be a limit to what this guy can get away with. And if we just always are saying, don't worry about it. I mean, all the outrageous shit that guy has done, it's time that he gets called out on. And I feel like
anytime we get locked up.
I feel like you. Yes, go ahead.
Let me say this. He has a lot of fires that he has to address. You have the case in New York. Now you have the federal case. We're still waiting to see what's going to happen in Georgia. You know, he may think that he's the Teflon Don, but I mean, the stress alone of fighting all those cases.
You think it might kill his ass?
I mean, I mean, the stress of it all. And so if he, you know, he says that he's going to run, I'm sorry, after a while, people are going to say, yeah, you really are not a good guy. And you know what, for me, that is really hypocritical. He says that he's the law and order guy, right? He believed in the military. Isn't this thing military?
He called people. He called the POWs cowards. And
you know what? If you read the indictment, the indictment quotes him from 2016 campaign, like from September 2016, October, and he was attacking Hillary Clinton, saying, "When I'm in office, all national security information we are going to prosecute. Nobody's above the law." He concedes that he had documents. I agree. Look, if he took documents that he shouldn't have taken, and they say bring them back, and he gives them back, end of story. No need for prosecution. He lied. He lied to his lawyers. He lied to the federal government. It's like, where do you draw the line and allow this guy to be the criminal that he's been his whole life?
And he's still lying.
And he's still lying. You guys, you may have missed it, but I played. We could play it again here. I played his. Let me get it. His response right after the indictment.
Very sadly, we're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far, and did much better the second time in the election than the first. And they go after him on a boxes hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. It's just been going on for 7 years. They can't stop, because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person.
Oh,
there you go.
Well, but anyway, my outrage. We can talk about Donald Trump all day. My outrage is Donald Trump Jr., Kwame Kilpatrick.
Oh, with the
Kardashians. He hanging out with the Kardashians and the American Got Talent idiot and stuff, celebrating his birthday. Motherfucker ain't paid a quarter or a dime to the state, to the city, which he said he would. He want to be a movie star.
Are you hating on him because?
Yes, I am.
Why?
Because you know what? Because he think people are stupid.
Listen,
and people are not stupid.
Yes,
so he hanging out with the Kardashians.
Yes, people are.
Well, this one ain't stupid. And I'll let you know for a footnote. Yes, I was a consultant. I dealt with the young man. But now he's 53 years old. Right. He's not a fucking young man anymore. It's not any youthful mistakes. You think that's a good look, Jim? That he's hanging out in Hollywood with
a good look for what though? I mean, he's not running for office.
He need to pay the money.
Okay.
Don't he need to pay the money?
I think the Trump name is poison in this country right now. Unfortunately, there's probably 30.
Trump was now we get right back to Trump because he was the only person that was going to let him out. What do you think of that, Allan?
Well, I think you're saying Kwame's hanging out with all these famous people and stuff like that. I think the look is if you're a minister, if that's not the crowd you want to be hanging with. I mean,
my God, you're being judgmental.
I'm saying that if you really want to be about spirituality and all this stuff, the Kardashians aren't the folks that I would be. I mean, he's entitled to hang out with whoever he wants.
Kardashian great grandmama 100 times fled Solomon and Gomorrah. Yeah, they lit.
But,
so anyway,
it's not. It's not a good optic, I think, for a minister who's
it's
trying to
not.
be spiritual and spiritual and talking about really more spirituality over materialistic things.
Well, he's selling his book, I guess.
The Kardashians are all about materialism, all about looks, the outside, not the inner beauty, but the outside beauty. But that's his business. It's his business.
That's my outrage. Listen. I just can't believe, especially with that minstrel that he was hanging out with, Terry Crews.
They call him Terry KKK Crews.
Yeah, he's a fucking minstrel. Kwame, what?
He's trying to save your soul.
Okay, Jim. But Jim, I would encourage you to go and read the full indictment, and you may, there's a breaking point.
Jim went to Taylor schools. He might not understand
it. Last night about 11 o'clock, and I'm outraged by his behavior. Absolutely outraged by his behavior.
Ain't no question about
it. I can't even understand that. That's what he was thinking.
Why would he stop? Why would his behavior stop unless he's indicted and someone goes after him? That's the problem. He did all that stuff with Ukraine. He threatened to Ukraine to withhold arms if they didn't investigate the Bidens. All that, and he got away with it. I mean, any president would have not gotten away with the stuff. Look, Richard Nixon. The Republicans back then had some decency to tell Richard Nixon,
they had some balls
to go. Time for you to go. The Republicans here are like, they're still afraid of Donald Trump. He's not even in office.
He's the boogeyman. Right. But anyway, we went over a little bit, and we're gonna do our final thought. Okay. Jim, you a guest. I'll go with you first.
I'm gonna continue on with that thought. Let's prosecute him. Let's take 90, 120 days. If you read the indictment, it's pretty clear in there what he's accused of. It shouldn't take 4 years to convict Donald Trump.
Okay, Vanessa, your final thought.
My final thought is there's a couple of things that we did not get a chance to talk about, and hopefully next week we'll be able to talk about them. Let's talk about the cashless system that we have going on, and particularly the fight that's going on in the city council about the cashless system.
Oh.
And two, Mackinac Island. We didn't get a chance to talk about Mackinac Island. I understand a couple of people
we can
showed up.
Yeah.
At Mackinac Island.
Well, we'll talk about that next week. Allan, your final thought.
I say kudos to the governor for signing a distracting driving bill. I don't know why it took so long. I see people on their phones attached to their ears. I think you need to have handless or, whatever it is. If you're going to use your phone, use it on the speaker, use it through your speaker on your car, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
It is.
And texting as well while people are driving.
And while you don't use your phone, you can give yourself a shot of vaccine. Alan Fauci.
There you go.
Anyway, I want to thank Frankie Darcell, Teresa, and Henry. And thank our audience. We had some little technical issues, but we made it through. Thank you, Jim, for sitting in. And Allan Lengel, we'll see you back next week.
All right.
Okay, that's a wrap.
Have a good one.